So you probably heard that if you want to get better at something, whether it's carpentry, cooking, or cricket, you need constructive criticism. But there's a catch. Getting feedback isn't enough. In the best case, you learn nothing, and in the worst case, your skills decline. You have to know how to properly process feedback to get the most out of it. I write documentation as a software developer every day, and I publish a post for my newsletter every week. Today, I'll share with you my AAA method of processing feedback so you can also make the most of the feedback you get. But first, what does it look like when you don't use feedback properly? So a friend of mine recently tweeted, "The problem with Waze, Grammarly, and other AI assistants is that I become stupid slowly and can't live without them. 2 streets away from my home, and I am lost. My English grammar and punctuation suck as never before. Please don't ask why I am afraid to use GitHub Copilot." And he's right. If you use technology to replace a skill, then you no longer have to practice the skill. Then your skill level will deplete. If you don't use it, you lose it. But you can also use technology to develop your skills. Feedback works in a similar way. I'm going to use writing as an example, but everything I talk about applies to all skills. If you just accept all feedback blindly, you won't learn anything because you're outsourcing all your editing to someone else. Outsourcing's not a bad thing per se, but your editing skills will decline because your editing skills are being replaced. If you want to develop your editing skills, you have to make editing decisions. This brings me to writing tools like Grammarly and Pro Writing Aid. These are AI writing assistants that give feedback on your writing. And in fact, I started using Pro Writing Aid earlier this year, and I use it for every newsletter post I write. Pro Writing Aid is not sponsoring me, I'm just using it to show you how I process feedback. Whenever I get feedback, I ask myself 4 questions. Why is the feedback important? What solutions resolve the feedback? What are the pros and cons of the solutions? And should I accept, adapt, or abstain from applying the feedback? For example, when I'm given writing feedback, I have to understand why it's important. When I'm asked to rephrase a sentence, I need to understand why the original sentence sucks. Writing software like Pro Writing Aid give me that explanation. If a person is giving me feedback and it's not clear why the feedback is important, I'll ask them. Now, sometimes no matter how hard I try, I can't understand the explanation, and this is when a sample solution can help. Assistant software will often give you one or more solutions to resolve the feedback. Like, if a sentence needs rephrasing in my writing, Pro Writing Aid will suggest at least one alternative. Now, people don't always offer solutions when giving feedback. In that case, I'll either ask them how they'd address the issue or suggest a solution and ask them what they think about it. And sometimes I won't get a suggestion, and in that case, I'll go with what I think is best based on my understanding of the feedback. Then I weigh my options, which include do nothing. Remember, doing nothing is always an option. For example, with writing feedback, sticking to the original sentence I wrote is an option. This step doesn't have to be complicated. It's not like I draw decision trees or do the math for every comment I get. When writing, I think about clarity, flow, rhythm, pacing, emotional impact, among other things. I think about how I can convey my message as best I can in my voice. So I weigh how well each option meets all my goals and go with the best one. And finally, I decide whether to accept, adapt, or abstain from applying the suggestion. Accept means I adopt the suggestion in full as is. Adapt means I change the suggestion before applying it so it fits my goals better. And abstain means I understand why the feedback is important, but I won't change what I did because I determined that what I had fit my goals best. So let's look at some examples of how I process feedback for my newsletter. So in this first example, we have accept. So I wrote the question, should I accept, adapt, or abstain from applying the feedback in the newsletter? The Pro Writing Aid noted a missing comma after the word adapt. It explained the comma is missing before a coordinating conjunction when a dependent clause follows an independent clause. Its suggestion was to add the missing comma. Now, I wasn't sure what a coordinating conjunction was, so I looked it up, but basically a comma is needed to separate 2 different ideas in the same sentence. What's interesting about this explanation, though, is that it's not a problem in this sentence. It's a false alarm by Pro Writing Aid. The only reason I know this is because I dove deeper. I learned why the software deems this to be important. Having learned this lesson, I should never see this warning again, ideally. But I am separating a list of items with commas, and I am missing an Oxford comma, technically, in the same place. Here, it's optional, its presence doesn't make the sentence clearer, but I ended up accepting the suggestion for this completely different reason, because it's more my style. In this second example, we have adapt. Here I wrote, you have to process the feedback properly to get value from it. So ProWriting Aid said I could enhance readability by saying, process the feedback properly to get value from it. Now I understand what it's saying. It's saying that using fewer words makes the sentence more readable, but the software isn't smart enough to get the tone and the message I'm trying to convey. Its suggestion would be too forceful in context. It would also disrupt the flow from the previous sentence to the next. But point taken, I could convey my message clearer in fewer words where possible. So I reworded it the way I thought best. I took its suggestion and adapted it to properly processing feedback is how you get the most from it. So in this third example, we have abstain. So this is a suggestion I get every edition. So ProWriting Aid notes possible unnecessary capitalization because I like to capitalize below the surface to match the name of my newsletter. I know it's probably grammatically wrong, but I do it as an intentional stylistic choice, so I abstained from applying the suggestion. So people can give nuanced feedback in ways AI writing assistants can't. I know ChatGPT is now a thing, but getting feedback from people also makes collaborating with others more fun and interesting because other people can get you thinking outside the box. And it's a great bonding opportunity too. So here's some feedback fellow writer Sam gave me on one of my posts. Now in that post, I listed a bunch of things I liked about my dream company, and Sam felt my list was too long. Keeping lists short is generally good advice for getting to the point faster, and I appreciated that because I understood what he meant. It's something for me to keep in mind for upcoming posts. But I abstained from applying his suggestion. As I explained, the list was intentionally long because I felt the length helped convey how perfect my dream company was in all ways big and small. And here's Louis giving me feedback on one of my other posts. In that post, I thought of adding one more example to help clarify the message I was trying to convey, but at least for Louis, the example didn't do the one thing it should do, so I applied a suggestion to keep the newsletter shorter and simpler. Remember, feedback is only valuable if you make sense of it. If you blindly apply feedback without thinking, you won't grow. In fact, your skills will decline. Understand why the feedback you're getting is important, weigh your options, and either accept, adapt, or abstain. Let me know down in the comments how you process feedback. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.